What if I told you that the survival of entire medieval villages depended on the backbreaking labor of women like Marta? Today, we're stepping into her shoes to uncover the untold story of medieval peasant women. The air is crisp, and the faint glow of sunlight peeks over the horizon. Smoke curls up from the thatched roofs of tiny cottages, and the sound of roosters echoes through the narrow, muddy paths. In one of these cottages, a woman named Marta is already awake, her hands calloused from years of labor. She stirs the embers of last night's fire, preparing for another grueling day. This is the world of a medieval peasant woman, a world of backbreaking work, quiet resilience, and unyielding strength. Today, we're stepping back in time to explore the daily life of a medieval peasant woman. We'll uncover her routines, her responsibilities, and the immense challenges she faced. From dawn till dusk, her life was a delicate balance of survival and sacrifice. But it wasn't just about hard labor. These women were the backbone of their families and communities, playing roles that often went unnoticed, but were absolutely vital. The impact of peasant women on history. You might be wondering, why does this matter? Well, the lives of these women shaped the very fabric of medieval society. They weren't just passive figures in history, they were farmers, healers, mothers, and caretakers. Their labor fed entire villages, their skills saved lives, and their resilience kept families together during times of famine, war, and disease. Understanding their lives gives us a deeper appreciation for how far we've come and the struggles that paved the way for modern society. Here's something you might not know. Many medieval peasant women were also skilled healers and midwives. They used herbs and traditional remedies to treat illnesses and deliver babies, often passing down their knowledge through generations. In a world without modern medicine, their expertise was life-saving. But their contributions didn't stop there. Stay with me, because we're about to dive into the fascinating, often overlooked world of medieval peasant women. Start with a personal story. Introducing Marta Meat. Marta. She's 25 years old, a wife, a mother, and the heart of her small family. It's still dark outside when she wakes up, her body stiff and aching from yesterday's endless labor. But there's no time to rest. Her family depends on her. As the first rays of sunlight peek through the cracks in the cottage walls, Marta begins her day, a day that will be filled with hard work, challenges, and quiet moments of strength. Lighting the fire and preparing breakfast. Marta's day begins in the dark, lighting a fire in the simple hearth. No modern stoves here, just embers, twigs, and the hope of warmth. She carefully blows on the embers from last night's fire, adding dry twigs and straw until flames flicker to life. Over this fire, she cooks a simple breakfast, a pot of porridge made from oats or barley, and maybe a piece of stale bread if the family is lucky. It's not much, but it's enough to give them the energy they need for the day ahead. Feeding livestock. If Marta's family is fortunate enough to own a cow, a few chickens, or a pig, her next task is feeding them. These animals are precious. They provide milk, eggs, and sometimes meat, which are vital for the family's survival. Marta steps outside into the chilly morning air, carrying a bucket of scraps or hay. She knows that if the animals aren't fed, the family could go hungry. Every egg collected and every drop of milk is a small victory in the battle to survive. Fetching water, a physically demanding task. Next, Marta grabs a large wooden bucket and heads to the village well. This is no easy task. The well is often far from her home, and the bucket is heavy when filled with water. She might make this trip several times a day, carrying the weight on her shoulders or balancing it on her head. Water is essential for cooking, cleaning, and drinking, but it's also a reminder of how much work goes into even the simplest tasks of daily life, the physical toll and constant struggle. By the time Marta finishes these morning chores, her body is already tired. Her hands are rough and calloused, her back aches, and her feet are sore from walking on uneven ground. But there's no time to rest. Her family's survival depends on her. Every day is a struggle, a balancing act of hard work and resourcefulness. And yet, Marta doesn't complain. She knows this is her role, her duty, and she faces it with quiet determination, setting up the rest of the day. But Marta's morning is just the beginning. Her day is filled with responsibilities that stretch far beyond the home. From working in the fields to caring for her children, every moment is a testament to her strength and resilience. So let's follow Marta as she steps into the next part of her day, a day that will test her limits but also show us the incredible power of a medieval peasant woman. Agricultural work, planting, weeding, and harvesting. After her morning chores, Marta heads to the fields. This is where the real work begins. Depending on the season, she might be planting seeds, pulling weeds, or harvesting crops. Imagine her bending over rows of wheat, barley, or peas, her hands moving quickly but carefully. Every plant she tends to is a step toward her family's survival. The work is backbreaking, but Marta knows there's no other option. If the crops fail, her family could starve. Working alongside her husband and children. Marta doesn't work alone. Her husband and children are right there beside her, each doing their part. Her husband might be plowing the field with a wooden plow pulled by an ox, while the children help by picking stones or chasing away birds. It's a family effort, and everyone, no matter how young or old, has a role to play. Marta's children learn early on that survival depends on hard work and teamwork. Women's contributions beyond the field. While Marta works in the fields, her tasks aren't limited to farming. Women like her often took on lighter field work, but they also stepped up to do heavy labor when needed. And when the sun began to set, Marta's work wasn't over. She might spend her evenings spinning wool into yarn, brewing ale, or making cheese. These tasks were just as important as farming. They provided clothing, drink, and extra food for the family. Marta's hands were always busy, whether she was in the field or at home. Marta's calloused hands. Look at Marta's hands, rough, calloused, and scarred. Each mark tells a story of survival. Can you imagine the strength it took to keep going, day after day? But every callus, every scar, is a reminder of her strength and determination. She knows that every grain of wheat she harvests, every piece of cloth she weaves, means her family will have food to eat and clothes to wear through the winter. It's a hard life, but Marta faces it with quiet courage. Harsh weather and risk of injury. The work in the fields isn't just hard, it's dangerous. Marta and her family face harsh weather conditions, from scorching summer heat to freezing winter cold. Rain can ruin crops and drought can destroy them. And then there's the risk of injury. A slip of the sickle, a stumble under a heavy load, or even a bite from a wild animal could leave Marta or her family unable to work. Illness is another constant threat. In a world without modern medicine, even a small infection could be deadly. The work continues at home. But Marta's work doesn't end when the sun sets. Back at home, there's still much to be done. The fire needs to be lit, the animals need to be fed, and the family needs to eat. For Marta, there's no such thing as a day off. Every moment is a battle for survival, and every task is a step toward keeping her family alive. So let's follow Marta as she returns home to face the next part of her day, a day that never truly ends. Household tasks, cooking meals. Over an open fire, after a long day in the fields, Marta returns home to face another set of challenges. The first task is cooking dinner. There's no modern kitchen here, just an open fire in the corner of the room. Marta carefully tends to the flames, using a large iron pot to cook a simple stew. The ingredients are basic, whatever vegetables she grew in her garden, maybe a piece of salted meat if the family is lucky, and a handful of grains. It's not fancy, but it's filling, and it's enough to keep her family going. Cleaning and maintaining the home. Once the meal is ready, Marta turns her attention to cleaning. The cottage is small with dirt floors and wooden walls, but it's her family's sanctuary. She sweeps the floor, straightens the straw bedding, and checks for any repairs that need to be done. A leaky roof or a broken door could mean disaster, especially in the cold winter months. Marta's home might be humble, but she takes pride in keeping it clean and safe for her family. Making and repairing clothes. Clothing is another big responsibility. Marta's youngest child has outgrown his tunic, so she spends the evening patching it with scraps of fabric. Every stitch is a testament to her love and determination. She also spins wool into yarn, weaving it into cloth to make new clothes for the family. It's a slow, painstaking process, but Marta knows that every piece of clothing she makes is one less thing her family has to worry about. Making do with limited resources. Marta is an expert at making do with what she has. If the family runs out of flour, she grinds more grain by hand. If the firewood runs low, she gathers twigs and branches from the forest. And if she needs something she can't make herself, she barters with her neighbors. Maybe she trades a basket of eggs for a piece of cloth, or offers her skills as a healer in exchange for help with repairs. Marta's resourcefulness is the key to her family's survival. Patching the tunic. As the sun sets and the cottage grows dark, Marta sits by the fire, her needle moving quickly through the fabric. Her youngest child's tunic is too small, but she can't afford to make a new one. So she patches it with scraps of fabric, carefully stitching each piece into place. Every stitch is a reminder of her love for her family and her determination to keep them warm and clothed. It's a small act, but it's one of many that define Marta's life, a vital role in the community. But life wasn't just about work. Medieval peasant women like Marta also played a vital role in their communities. They were healers, midwives, and caretakers, offering support and wisdom to their neighbors. So let's step outside Marta's home and explore the ways she and other women shaped the world around them. Community roles: healers, midwives, and caretakers. Marta's life wasn't just about her family, she was also a vital part of her village community. Like many medieval peasant women, Marta had skills that went beyond farming and household chores. She knew how to brew herbal remedies, treat wounds, and even help deliver babies. When a neighbor fell ill, it was often Marta who came to their aid, spending hours by their side, offering comfort and care. In a world without doctors, women like Marta were the backbone of their communities, using their knowledge and compassion to heal and support those around them, participating in village festivals and church activities. But Marta's role in the community wasn't limited to healing. She also took part in village festivals and church activities. These events were a rare break from the hard work of daily life. During festivals, Marta might join in dances, share stories, or help prepare feasts. At church, she found solace and a sense of belonging. These gatherings weren't just about fun or faith, they were a chance for the village to come together, to celebrate, and to strengthen the bonds that held them all together. Women supporting. Women in a world full of challenges, women like Marta relied on each other for support. When a woman went into labor, it was her neighbors who came to help. When someone fell ill, it was the women of the village who nursed them back to health. Marta knew that she could count on her friends and neighbors, just as they could count on her. This sense of solidarity was essential for survival. It wasn't just about kindness, it was about knowing that no one could make it through life alone. Marta's role as a healer. One winter, Marta's neighbor fell seriously ill. The woman was weak and feverish, and her family didn't know what to do. Marta spent hours by her side, brewing herbal teas, applying poultices, and offering words of comfort. Slowly, the woman began to recover thanks to Marta's care. In a world without hospitals or modern medicine, it was women like Marta who made the difference between life and death. Her skills and kindness were a lifeline for her community, life's struggles and resilience. But life as a medieval peasant woman wasn't without its struggles. Despite the support of her community, Marta faced countless challenges: poverty, illness, and the constant threat of hunger. Yet, through it all, she found strength in the bonds she shared with her family and neighbors. These connections were her lifeline, a reminder that even in the hardest times, she wasn't alone. So, let's take a closer look at the challenges Marta faced and how she overcame them. Poverty and food shortages. Life as a medieval peasant woman was far from easy. Marta and her family lived in constant fear of poverty and hunger. A bad harvest, a harsh winter, or even a few days of heavy rain could mean the difference between having enough to eat and going hungry. Marta often had to stretch every grain of wheat, every piece of bread, to make sure her family didn't starve. It was a daily battle, one that required creativity, resourcefulness, and an unbreakable spirit. High mortality rates. The pain of loss. But hunger wasn't the only threat. Illness and disease were everywhere, and medical knowledge was limited. Marta lost her first child to a fever, a pain she carries with her every day. Childbirth was especially dangerous. Many women didn't survive, and those who did often lost their babies. Marta herself has faced the risks of childbirth multiple times, each experience a reminder of how fragile life could be. Yet, despite the heartbreak, she finds the strength to keep going, for the sake of her surviving children. Limited rights and societal expectations. Marta's life was also shaped by the expectations of her time. As a woman, she had few rights and little say in the decisions that affected her life. Her role was to work, to care for her family, and to obey her husband. She couldn't own property, vote, or even choose her own path. But within these limits, Marta found ways to assert her independence. She was a skilled healer, a resourceful homemaker, and a pillar of her community. Her strength and resilience defied the narrow roles society tried to assign her, surviving and thriving. Despite the countless challenges, women like Marta found ways to survive and even thrive. They leaned on each other for support, sharing food, knowledge, and comfort. They passed down skills and traditions, ensuring that their children would have the tools they needed to face the world. Marta's life was hard, but it was also full of love, courage, and determination. She refused to let hardship define her, choosing instead to focus on the things that mattered most: her family, her community, and her own inner strength. Marta's loss and strength. Marta still remembers the day she lost her first child. The fever came suddenly, and despite her best efforts, there was nothing she could do. Imagine waking up every day knowing that your family's survival depends entirely on you. Could you do it? The pain of that loss stays with her, a quiet ache that never fully goes away. But Marta finds strength in her surviving children, in the laughter and love they bring to her life. She finds strength in her community, in the women who stand by her side through every hardship. And she finds strength in herself, in the knowledge that she has faced the worst and still found a way to keep going. Lessons from the past. So, what can we learn from the lives of women like Marta? Their stories are a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of community, and the strength of the human spirit. They remind us that even in the face of unimaginable challenges, it's possible to find hope, to keep going, and to build a life worth living. As we reflect on Marta's journey, let's take a moment to honor the courage and determination of all the women who came before us. So, the next time you complain about your Wi-Fi being slow or your coffee being cold, remember Marta. Her life was a daily battle for survival, and yet she faced it with quiet strength and resilience. What's your excuse? We've seen her daily routines: waking before dawn, working in the fields, cooking over an open fire, and caring for her family. We've felt the weight of her responsibilities and the challenges she faced: poverty, illness, and the constant struggle to survive. But we've also witnessed her incredible resilience, her resourcefulness, and the vital role she played in her family and community. Marta's life was hard, but it was also full of strength, love, and determination. Women like Marta may not have had their names recorded in history books, but their labor and love shaped the world we live in today. They were the backbone of medieval society, feeding their families, healing their neighbors, and passing down traditions that still influence us today. Their stories remind us that history isn't just about kings and battles. It's also about the quiet, everyday heroes who kept the world turning. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What surprised you most about the life of a medieval peasant woman? How do you think their struggles compare to the challenges women face today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're curious to learn more about medieval history, explore the resources I've linked in the description. There's so much more to discover about this fascinating time. The next time you see a field of wheat or hear the crackle of a fire, take a moment to remember the women who worked tirelessly to keep their families and communities alive. Their stories are a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the hardest times, courage, love, and resilience can light the way. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the past. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep honoring the stories that shape our world.